We're filthy, ungodly mutants, but we're their filthy, ungodly mutants. I'm Anthony.
I'm Damon.
I'm David.
I'm Kirby. I'm Dr. Kurt's dad.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Jim.
Welcome to issue number 129 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Each and every week we meet here to talk about comics. Here's what we have going on for this week's episode. We are going to be talking about the books that we've been reading, and we're going to jump over to Jacob's birthday battle, as it's the first Saturday in May. So that is going to be the Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern. Now, also because it's the first Saturday in May, you all know that it's Free Comic Book Day. So,
Yay!
to celebrate Free Comic Book Day 2020, I have a bunch of Archie Digest here, so I'm going to hand them all out to you here. There you go. Yeah. Y'all catching them?
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
There we go.
Obviously, we've lost the special effects budget.
Yeah, it all went to the green screen. That's not going to do anything back there. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we are going to jump into our weekly reviews. I'm going to kick it off here with a Marvel title from the early 2000s. This is X-Statix. X-Statix was created by Peter Milligan and Mike Allred. It was a revamping of the X-Force team in X-Force, I think, 116 or 126, something around there, in which they got rid of the regular team. They introduced brand new characters that we've never seen before, and it was going to be a team of mutants that were going to be famous. They're basically celebrities. They were being videotaped for kind of like a reality show type of thing by this little guy named Dupe. You may not see him in the green screen. He might get lost back there. But Dupe here, one of the members, along with a bunch of new cast members, and what was known for the X-Force / X-Statix, as they were later renamed, was that don't get attached to the members because there's a very high death rate when it comes to the team members. If you've seen the Deadpool 2 movie, they actually took an element of that was started in the X-Force with this run, brought into the Deadpool movie, including the Zeitgeist character, who we saw in the movie. So X-Statix became the second iteration of it when they dropped the X-Force title. And what was kind of interesting with the series beginning in the first place is that because it was such a brutal, gory book right off the bat, the Comics Code had rejected it. And this is when Marvel, for the first time in, I think, like 30 years, it would have been like in the 70s when they did that Spider-Man, the smoking issue. This would be the first time that Marvel said, okay, we're not going to put the code on there. And they would continue to not put the Comics Code on, which later other publishers would follow suit and start to get closer to, getting rid of the Comic Code completely. And that all started with this X-Force X-Statix team. Rather than talking about the whole 40-plus issues, I am talking about a very specific arc, which is called Back from the Dead Part 1. It's a 6-issue story in which it revolves around a young European pop star who had died. There was a freak accident. It was known to be a secret murder staged as an accident. And we find out that this pop star came back to life. She was able to embody somebody else, and we found out that was part of her mutant ability. Henrietta, I think was her name. Henrietta Hunter. And so the X-Statix team went to Europe to recruit her, and they wanted to protect her and actually, recruit her to the team. What was kind of cool about it throughout the 6 issues is she brought a lot of fame to the X-Statix team, which is their main goal, is to be these celebrity mutant superheroes for hire. and having her on the team was a great publicity stunt. But what they always do with the background leaders of the X-Statix is it's kind of an evil leadership, so they always purposely try to make sure they can kill their team members because they're like, all right, we have to drop this person. They're becoming too famous. They're overshadowing our team. So they kind of actually eventually set out to try to get rid of her from the team. So it was a pretty fun, entertaining arc, including a guest appearance from Spider-Man. But one of the other cool things about it, and I think David might be the only one that was tipped off to it earlier, so I don't know if any of you have heard about the controversy with this X-Statix run. So what happened, it was probably around 2003 or so. This is the cover that came out for X-Statix number 15. That is the Princess Pop Star character, Henrietta, who is jumping into the action. This is where the controversy comes in. This was originally supposed to be Princess Diana.
Oh.
Marvel set up the story, so in the previews, 2 or 3 months out, it broke news that, Marvel Comics is reviving Diana, who had just, she died in 97. So we're talking, a good, 5 years plus later, Marvel Comics is going to bring her back into this mutant book. And they put it out there, and it just got big-time press. And when the UK and the royal family heard about it, they were actually pretty upset, as one could imagine. And it turned into a big thing that they eventually had to scrape that idea. And they took away that character and replaced her with a fictional character. And they already had a couple issues drawn. So what had happened was Mike Allred, the artist, actually drained a lot out of him when it came to the creative side of it. So an artist friend of him, known as Jay Bone, came in and he would ink the later issues. He would ink over the current art and start changing the features. And he did a lot of, the pickup work beyond the pencils that Mike Allred did, because he just started to kind of lose enthusiasm. He felt that they had a good story. It was, in the headlines, bringing back, Princess Diana, who died tragically. It looked bad, but in the comic story that they were going to tell was going to be of service. And the writer, Peter Milligan, is an Englishman himself. So it was all done. It was meant to be done respectively. And since that kind of pulled under the rug and that kind of took a lot of enthusiasm out of them, and then the run kind of pittered out, and just it ended up, ending at a certain issue. But this arc, Back from the Dead, I think it's very readable just by itself. Just a bunch of crazy new characters, a lot of comedy, a lot of parody, a lot of fun. And with that extra controversy, even though Mike Allred kind of still feels bad about it today, as the reader, it's still a very entertaining story regardless. So that is X-Statix, Back from the Dead, a 6-issue run, starting with issue number 15.
I thought you said, we're going to say that you felt bad about putting you in a comic book.
Oh, no. He'll regret that in June. Damon?
Okay. I wanted to, now that I've been reading comics for a while, I wanted to try my hand in some manga, or however you want to pronounce it.
Mango.
What is it?
Mango. It's a fruit.
I think
Mongol.
Mongoloid.
Mongoloid, yes.
So, okay. So I started looking into what were some of the more popular ones, and one of the most popular, I guess, is Berserk. And I picked up the Deluxe edition by Dark Horse. It's got a nice leather or full leather binding, and it looks nice on the bookshelf.
Ooh.
But it contains 3 volumes of the manga, and so it's actually really the same price if you buy the 3 volumes or just buy this. And this is oversized, so you get to actually see some of the artwork. this was my first time really reading a whole book of that was black and white too, which I guess is how most manga is. But after like 5-10 pages, you don't even I didn't even notice.
That you were going the wrong way.
Well, I didn't notice the color. The black and white didn't really bother me. It did take a little bit because if you notice the book, this is the back side. The front side is blank, so you do have to read it, from back to front and then from right to left. But the artwork in it was great, especially since this first volume I think came out in 1989, and it's still ongoing. There's 40 volumes of this story. It's about a man named Guts, and he's had a heck of a life. He was born from a hung corpse. A group of mercenaries found him lying in a mud puddle underneath a hung woman, and the mercenaries raised him. So he didn't have a very good life. This takes place, it's kind of like medieval Europe, right around the time of the plague. And he's a mercenary, around, he fights evil. He's got a brand on him, which is, you can kind of see this is the brand that's actually on him, which is not good. It has, I don't know exactly what it entails, but it summons evil and makes his life hard. And pretty much everyone he comes in contact with, it seems, becomes collateral damage and usually ends up dying. And it's action-packed. There's demons, there's creatures, there's a lot of fighting. The art is great. There's even some like full-page spreads. Like here's like a nice splash page. He carries a big sword, and he's able to cut a guy right in half with it. And like here's some nasty demon creature crawly things.
Sometimes when you have those big like monster detail work, the black and white is almost better than color sometimes. It's just really
you see the detail.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. I ripped through this real quick. I'm definitely going to continue with the series. If you like fantasy action, there is some nudity in there, but not too much. From what I tell, though, the book even gets even more violent as you go on further in the series. Like it's still ongoing. As of 2018, there's over 40 million copies sold, and this is Dark Horse's best-selling product of all time.
Until X-Ray Robot number 3.
So it was a lot of fun. If you're looking to dip your toes into some manga or experience it for the first time, or if you like this sort of stuff, this was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. And I definitely recommend getting these deluxe hardcovers. There's 3 volumes in here, and they're almost the same price as if you bought the 3 volumes by themselves anyways. And it's larger, because the manga is a smaller size. So you get to see the artwork larger and see the detail in some of his work.
Damon,
Yep.
What is the price on one of those then?
Retail is $50.
Okay.
The paperbacks are $15, but if you go on to sites like In Stock Trades, they're $30.
Good.
And I think the trades, if you get the individual volumes, are like $10 or $11. So you spend $10 or $11 for the 3 paperbacks, or you spend like $32 and get the deluxe hardcover.
It's the price of just a cup of coffee. Sounds
Yeah.
good.
And then, it was a lot of fun.
On Mars.
They are going to keep these going. They're releasing, I think, 3 or 4 a year. The first volume came out in February of 19, and they already are up to 4. The 5th one was supposed to come out, I think, this month or next month, and then volume 6 is going to be in the fall sometime. So with 40 volumes right now, and there's 3 volumes per book, you're already looking at like 13 at least so far.
Ouch.
Maybe more if he keeps going, because it's been the one.
They don't like to stop. They like to keep going.
Taro Muro or Mura. I'm bad with names. That's his name. Taro Miura. He's been the sole writer and artist, I guess, for the whole series. And so this is his baby. This is all pretty much he does. So it was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
You're gonna have to buy a house just for your comic books pretty soon.
My office is full. I got a stack. I don't even know where to go.
I'll take them. Here, hand them over.
Okay.
We'll all take
Heavy. All right, David.
All right. So, going back, delving deep into the back issues and the old stuff, I decided to pull out an old Superman Action Comics. I pulled out, this is number 460 from June of 1976. And of course, we open with the Joker in a Hostess fruit pie advertisement.
Oh, how
What a better way
nice.
to open a comic than with
That's
a
right.
Joker Hostess.
Penguin got fired.
Yeah. It wasn't even the same year, and it was Penguin in the one that I talked about last time. So, and this is back when they commonly did backup stories, and so we can all talk about how to pronounce that name. But we do have a Mr. We'll call him Mr. Mixelflick.
Mr. Fix.
Pixie.
He's got the backup story in here. This one is one that I'm going to have to seek out issue 461 because I don't have 461, and so I didn't get to finish the story. It's a kind of a two-parter.
Let's go and see what happens.
So yeah, I'm going to have to find that one out. This is Superman, You'll Be the Death of Me Yet. And
That's me.
what this story was about was there is this alien from Andromeda who his people, his whole world, they have superpowers. It's not like Krypton where they didn't have powers there, but they did on Earth. There they all had powers. They were all strong, they could fly and everything else. And but one of them developed an allergy to his own people. So they had to ship him off to someplace that had a similar atmosphere and yellow sun and all that stuff, which of course was Earth. And everything was fine until Clark Kent got on a bus that he was riding on, disguised as some construction worker. And actually, Superman's coworker, Steve Lombard, got on the same bus shortly after. And this alien starts having this allergic reaction because it turns out that Superman physiology is close enough to this alien's people that it causes him to have the same allergic reaction. And it's not like he breaks out in hives. It's more like he breaks out in flames. He gets very hot, so he starts melting the bus. And it's one of those stories where, coincidentally, Steve Lombard shows up at the same place that Superman is around. So this alien thinks that Steve is Superman. And so he sets out to kill Steve Lombard, thinking he's Superman in order to save himself, because he, for some reason, thinks that he can't just move to a different city. He can't share a planet with one being that he's allergic to. It's like if Jim, being allergic to cats, had to rid the entire world of cats to avoid
Yes.
One on the street, man. That's it.
and that's when we had to get rid of Jim. And so that's kind of the story, is them trying to figure this out. Superman has no idea what's going on. He just knows that He can't seem to do anything about this alien, because when he's with him, the alien heats up, and Superman actually has something similar happen. He suddenly gets kind of weak and feverish and stuff. So it's like the guy's made of kryptonite. So this is just let's see what this guy and his people look like with their big bug eyes, bugging eyeballs, and whatever. But he has the ability to turn into a normal looking comic book construction worker. Now you want people to know that this normal looking construction worker is actually the story's villain. So you dress him in purple and green. Because, what else would the bad guy wear?
Evil purple.
Yeah, you got to have purple and green. It's a villain
Did
combination.
Lex Luthor have that?
The Joker.
Well, that's what made him bad, I think.
The Riddler. A number of people. Green Goblin.
Yep.
The Incredible Hulk, which was always one of those characters where, is he good? Is he bad?
Hulk smash.
Yeah. So.
It would have been good if he hadn't been purple and green.
Yeah. It was okay when he was gray.
Red
That's
Hulk.
funny, because that's when he was probably the worst, was when he was the Gray Hulk, because he was.
Oh yeah, Joe Fix.
Yeah. He actually was intentionally kind of bad. Whereas normally the Hulk was, and he just got himself into situations where there was trouble and smashing. So yeah, we go through, and there's a couple instances where they have some run-ins, and it ends with the alien, busting into the Daily Planet's gym where Steve is working out. Clark Kent had just been there. So the alien, when he got there, he started feeling the effects of it, but Superman flew away just before he entered, and so he's going to kill Steve. And that's where the story leaves off. And I may never know how it ends. Yes, I can just end it myself in my mind.
Here by her.
We do get a quick public service announcement story with Superman. That's a one-pager. Where I think the whole story is not to just judge people just because you see a kid in the juvenile court. It doesn't mean that the kid's bad. In this case, the kid was like being adopted. So apparently back in the 70s, there must have been a big problem with people being judged because they were in a juvenile court. I don't know. I don't know if they had to write a one-page story about it just to, so that people weren't getting jumping to that conclusion. And then we get our backup story where we have Mr. Mxyzptlk. He arrives, but Superman had just flown off and left Earth for a planet. So Mixie decides that what he's going to do for a little prank is, while Superman's gone, he's going to go around and start turning the Earth into basically transforming it to look like the fifth dimension, so that when Superman gets back, he will be fooled into thinking that he's in the fifth dimension. And then he decides to kind of team up with this kid, Jonathan Ross, who's Pete Ross's son in this older continuity. I think current comics, I don't think he's got a kid, but so teams up with him, and this kid's smart, so he decides, well, what would Superman do? Superman would probably play into Mixie's little game until he figures out how to stop him. So that's what the kid does, and he finds out that Mixie's got this trap that he's going to get Superman in, and Superman will have to say his Kryptonian name backwards to free himself. So Jonathan Ross just kind of sneaks up behind Mixie, kicks him in the butt, and knocks him into the trap. So Mixie then has to say his name backwards to escape the trap. But as we know, that also sends Mixie back to the 5th dimension for at least 90 days, thus thwarting his plans. And that is Action Comics number 460. Luckily, I got to end one story in this. Yeah, I don't have to wait for the next issue to come out. Do the backup story at least.
All right, let's move over to Kirby.
I checked out Marvel Comics Kitty Pryde, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. 3 comic book run. Give you a synopsis from the comic. American-born teenager Catherine Pryde has the mutant ability to turn her body intangible and walk on air with but a thought. Trained in the ways of the samurai and the ninja, Kitty, aka Shadowcat, has both physical prowess and a brilliant mind. A former member of the X-Men team, her formal training came under the tutelage of Professor Charles Xavier. Now she's joining S.H.I.E.L.D., the Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage Logistic Directorate, a worldwide intelligence and peacekeeping organization dedicated to protecting the nations and peoples of Earth from all threats to its security.
And thank God they came up with a shorter version of that name.
We're working on it.
It's a fun story. You get to see Colossus, some of the other X-Men characters. It's your standard artwork. Nice, clean. Wolverine comes in here. She gets basically called in by S.H.I.E.L.D. because they're having problems with their computer systems, and her handprint's about the only one that can access it because she helps set it up and stuff. So in order to help out S.H.I.E.L.D., she gets a crappy internship with S.H.I.E.L.D. just to come and do this. But she wanted to learn some more, so she goes ahead and does it. And it ends up that Shogun, who she has beaten in the past, he was also Wolverine's teacher back in the day. He's taken over the computer system. Wolverine comes to help out. You got Lockheed in here, her little dragon friend that's hanging out with her. A few other characters just popping in and out. It's a good story, and like Anthony had broke down, because they have the mad full page type things where you fold the pages and get a different image.
Oh,
So I had to do that for the Kit Kat commercials, just to see all it does is have the kid having the Kit Kat in his hand. So I bent the pages for nothing. But I didn't like how Dugan is portrayed in here. He's kind of a little bit more angry than normal. But yeah, you have a good battle scene. It goes on and on. He keeps taking control of one of the big ships of S.H.I.E.L.D. and tries to crash it into different things. It's just Kitty goes into a virtual world to fight Shogun because he's multiple different things in this entities in this storyline. But yeah, if you want to know more about Kitty Pryde, it doesn't really give you too much about any backstory. Just tells their abilities and stuff like that and gets you introduced to her. You get to learn a little bit about Wolverine and Shogun's back history with him being his teacher. Just a good, fun story. So check it out.
And for more on Kitty Pryde and Wolverine, they had a mini-series too. It was either Kitty Pryde and Wolverine or Wolverine and Kitty Pryde, but that would be another good.
Yeah, I'm curious what their whole back history is, but he's very, very protective of her. So
I don't even remember that great issue where Kitty Pryde and Colossus got married.
No.
Yeah, I remember that. We had a whole big wedding ceremony, reception and everything. We threw it.
Yeah. And then they didn't go through with it.
But we went through with the cake.
Yeah, we went.
That's right, we did.
That was such a betrayal, but I'm glad we had cake to make it better.
That's right. Cake
Plus,
makes
we got a
everything
little
better.
bit out of it. All right, we'll move on to Dr. Kurtzstad.
Yep. I was going to say on Kirby's, they made those fold pages to drive people like Kurt crazy.
Yep. I know. I wish he could have seen me fold it up.
Oh, it broke his heart.
Felt it.
All right.
A full length crease in your page drops the value of your comics.
That's right. Well, I have for us, I don't know how well you can see this, showing you a computer screen on the computer screen, because I have it on e-comics, Evil at Baldur's Gate, which is the fourth arc in the Baldur's Gate comic series. People probably know about Baldur's Gate from all kinds of places, comics, you maybe played the video games, but basically the comics follow the exploits of a group that was stationed in Baldur's Gate, including Minsk, the ranger who has a small hamster on his shoulder and tells everybody it's a mystical space hamster, giant space hamster that travels with him. We have Shandy and Krayley, I think it is, who are thieves. Delina, who's a wild mage. Neres, who's a dark cleric. And what's neat about this particular arc in the story is that they each get an individual event, kind of adventure that's outlined in this arc, as opposed to in the past it's always been them as a group out adventuring in various places, but now we get individual stories for each of them. Minsk goes off in search of evil in all the bars in Baldur's Gate and runs into someone who's claiming to be a hero but turns out to be a monster, and he and Minsk have a battle together. We have Shandy and Krayley out trying to save his father from an assassination attempt against the heads of Baldur's Gate. You have Delina going to a different dimension. She's a wild mage, but the dimension is one of pure order, and so she's in big trouble from the moment she steps into it until she escapes. Neres takes on a werewolf, and what's really neat in this issue is Boo, the giant space hamster, has his own adventure in which he saves the whole group from a group of thieves that are out to kill them. He chews through lines to drop things on them and trips them up with little ropes that he pulls across by their feet and takes them all out so that when the group wakes up, they find them all tied up the next day and don't realize that it's little Boo who has saved their lives. So if you're hungering for Dungeons and Dragons adventure, I think this is probably the most fun issue in the Baldur's Gate series, or the most fun arc in the Baldur's Gate arc so far. So I would certainly recommend Evil in Baldur's Gate.
Excellent. Let's move over to Katie.
Okay. So I want to talk about the Forces of Destiny trade paperback. It's from IDW. There's a whole bunch of different creators on it. Can you hear me okay, or am I electronic? Sweet. Let's see. So there are stories. They're all about different female characters in Star Wars. It's definitely a kid's book, but it was still really fun. So it's about Rey, Leia, Padme, and Paige and Rose. So 3 of these stories I've already read. Still fun. The 3 I read were the Leia one, the Hera one, and then the Padme one. I actually felt like I enjoyed the Hera story a little more this time. And the 2 that were new were Rey and the one with Rose Page. I was only surprised by the Rose and Page story. I thought the characters were okay in the movie and feel a huge attack to that.
And
Lost her. There she is.
Oh, she's back. We lost her. She came back.
me in the heartfelt review. Okay. So Zoom downvoted that. Anyway, I really liked the Rosenberg story. I guess Zoom didn't like the story, but I was pleasantly surprised. I thought the characters were fine, but I didn't feel, like I'm invested in these characters. But this gave them some back. It's really helpful. Paige and Rose want to resist, so they have the idea to go out to the scrap pile, and they've essentially built what are doom buggies. Guess on the world, there's too much vegetation for hovercraft to work, so they need a wheeled vehicle. And they build these doom buggies and some fun race them, but since they're homemade vehicles, they get a little out of control. The brakes don't work so good. And one of them ends up in the ditch. So then Rose goes to try and get her sister out of the ditch, and she finds some animal companions to help her. So that was pretty cool. It looked kind of like ostriches. And in the course of pulling her sister out of the ditch, they found out that there were some valuable metallurgical resources that they could use. I want to say it was like dirt or something.
And lost her, and now she's back again.
I'm look. Anyway, great story. They were all reviews. Mostly a kid's book. Obviously, anyone can enjoy it. Good for younger readers. Most of the Star Wars from IDW is. I enjoyed it. Good to see stories from some other characters I really too. Could always do more content. Something cool about this book is I got it through Prime Reading. And so because I'm a Prime subscriber, I get access to a bunch of digital titles for free with my subscription. They have a whole bunch of comic volumes. They're usually number ones, but like first volumes of comics to enjoy. Other books too. But if you're looking for something else to read during this lockdown, definitely check out Prime Reading if you have it. Great resource that I don't think they advertise enough as part of their package. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Forces of Destiny from IDW. And that's that.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll move over to Jim.
All right. This week, I'm going to talk about Lost Girls from Alan Moore. This was a book I got on Comixology a few years ago as part of a package and never actually read. This is volume 1 of, I believe, 3 volumes total were put out. And this, at least volume 1, is a very adult, a very erotic story. And it's about older woman, British woman whose family has shipped her off to South Africa to run their interests there because she was a lesbian and would be embarrassing the family if she was left in the country. Now, this is back in British colonial days, so this is not a current story. So she decides while she's there, she's going to give it all up. She sells the company and she moves to Austria. Once she moves into this grand hotel in Austria, then the story gets going, where we see another young woman check in, and they become friends, and they start to develop a relationship. And then while this is also happening, another couple, man and woman, also check in around the same time. And that woman becomes interested in what this other couple between, the older woman and the young woman are up to, and she has like her suspicions, and she follows them around. And then as together, the three of them become friends and start another relationship, three-way relationship between them. The interesting part was during the course of their relationship, they tell stories, and we find out who these women are supposed to have been. The original woman we find out last. The first one to tell her story is the young American woman whose name is Dottie. And as she tells her story of being at her aunt and uncle's house during a tornado, and that tornado having an effect on her, very erotic effect on her, which changed her view. And we think that, as you become aware of who this person is, you come to the realization Now, did her story as we know it, was that a story, or was that just her erotic fantasy as it's been retold for children? The next one to tell her story was the married woman, and she tells about her story growing up, how she was visited by this stranger from a different world kind of thing, and he told stories to her and her brothers while the nanny was downstairs, and these stories became again very erotic and how they experienced each other and all that. And she ends up telling them that her name was Wendy. And then obviously Peter Pan and Wendy and her brothers and such. And the final woman to tell her story, she tells of she was had this mirror, and things would happen when she talked to her mirror, and she ended up being Alice from the Wonderland stories. So, and then that was the end of the first volume. So I just wonder now if it's going to be worth looking into volumes 2 and 3, if they're going to continue with these people, or are they going to bring new characters in? As I just finished reading it yesterday, I haven't had a chance to look at the actual stories, but I did find the volume 2 for sale for $70 on Amazon. So right now that's a little out of my price, but that was, and this is a book I've heard of before. I heard people talk about it, but I just never had the chance to read it until now.
eBay is always
Cool.
It was a little bit of a, well, not complete departure, but it was different from what Alan Moore usually did, more of a horror kind of thing than usual, but definitely was on the outside of mainstream when he wrote it.
Cool. All right, I'll move over to a 3-issue arc from Savage Dragon, starting with issue number 83. And as you can see on the cover here, why I'm reading Savage Dragon for the first time, because Frank Einstein, Madman, is in this crossover.
Oh, not Silver Surfer?
No. Dragon tries to escape his cell under the gladiatorial arena, but he's beaten by a creature named Droog. Dragon eventually is put into the arena of death to fight for his life. So going through the all read, all read, I noticed that they were going to do a crossover with Madman. So I had to seek out these issues from early 2000s. I had never read Savage Dragon before, but I figured I was just going to give it a shot and jump in. And what was very easy to read about this story, that it had a lot of like Planet Hulk, Thor Ragnarok movie type of arena atmosphere, where Savage Dragon is in this arena. He's being pitted against a bunch of other opponents and monsters and creatures, and then we find out that Madman is also in here too. And so the 3-issue arc is Savage Dragon kind of being tricked by a higher being to make him see some other beast, but it ends up being he's fighting Madman and the Atomics, who are his teammates. So once Savage Dragon kind of realizes he's being brain tricked into fighting some innocent people, they start fighting back, and then eventually they would have to team up to stop these villains and these creatures. But like I said, without knowing anything about Savage Dragon, it was a fairly easy read. They were definitely kind of referencing some reasons why he got thrown into this arena, which you don't find out in this. He's just already in the thick of things. But having those references of reading those Hulk comics and the Thor Ragnarok movie, it made it pretty easy to understand. But one of the villain creatures he was fighting is this character named Brainape, who is simply an ape with a brain on top of his head, but the brain is Hitler's brain. So that's a whole interesting element to the character there. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. I don't necessarily need to keep going on with Savage Dragon, but it felt good to actually read it for the first time to kind of get an attitude of the character. Really dug the artwork. It was written and drawn by Eric Larson, who was the creator of Savage Dragon, and I assume has been doing it since the beginning. And I think they're coming up on what, issue like 250 or 300, some kind of milestone soon, I think.
Yeah, they got quite a few.
But yeah, so just being a Madman fan, having that gimmick of a crossover, and already loaning his characters off to Eric Larson and a lot of the Dark Horse and Image people, they kind of had this circle of friends that kind of shared their characters. And already done that with Mike Mignola with the Hellboy, and they've done some crossovers that way and stuff. So it's fun just to see the creators kind of play around with their own characters and having a say in it, and not having to check with an editorial office of, no, this character's off in Wolverine #7 right now, so you can't use him in this book or something. So it's always cool to kind of read those for some fun. So that was Savage Dragon number 83, 84, and 85 from the early 2000s. David? Do we have a Damon?
We lost his audio again.
Might help if I unmute the mic.
That usually does help. Yeah.
Probably would.
Got chased off by the cat hair.
So last week I did a review of Prometheus, The Complete Fire and Stone. This week I read the sequel, The Complete Life and Death. I'm sorry.
That's the audio he meant to mute.
This is Prometheus, Aliens, Alien versus Predator, and Predator, The Complete Life and Death sequel. This picks up right where the first one left off. There's survivors left on LV, whatever the number is. And this time the Colonial Marines are involved. So you have it's basically one big survival and conflict book. It's cool. You're going to have the engineers from Prometheus, the Marines, aliens, predators, all on the same battlefield. And it's real cool to see some of them fight. For instance, I got some pages marked. Here's like a fight between an alien queen and an engineer.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. Here's another scene of the alien queen fighting an engineer.
Good splash pages.
Yep, it's pretty cool. I had another page mark. Here is a scene with like a predator surrounded by aliens on the battlefield going to town with his cannon. The art is pretty cool in here. It's a lot of action. It was a fun book. They do set it. It does have an ending, but it also could be an opening for a part 3, which I really hope they do, because this was a fun story. It's basically, I don't really want to go too much into it because it might ruin the ending of the first book, but you definitely need to read Fire and Stone before you can read Life and Death. It's literally a part 2, and it's a great conclusion to that story. You find out what happens to some of those characters. And there's some cool stuff. For instance, like in the first book, you had Ahab, the one predator that was helping them. Well, there's a whole ship full of predators in this book that lands, and they don't like seeing Ahab stand with humans against them. So that led into a conflict. So what does the one predator do? Does he drop his sword and join forces, go back to a tribe? Or does he stand with the humans that have been fighting alongside him for all these 2 years? But yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you're a fan of aliens, predators, all that stuff, these 2 books were probably some of the best books I've read since I started reading comics. It's a lot of fun. I highly recommend them. Fire and Stone and Life and Death. They're available in trades or in the big collection, whatever you guys want to get. But I definitely recommend you check them out.
Good. All right, David?
All right. Well, going back to my last story, I made the comment about Jim's allergies to cats, and now I'm kind of wondering here because I noticed he walked away. As he walked away, about a minute later, I ended up having a cat jump in my lap. Right? Cat jumped down, went away. Then Jim walked back in. I think not.
I think Jim's cooking again. The cat can smell
Wait
it.
a minute. Maybe Jim is the cat.
Eh?
Could be.
Okay, so I finished up. I'd recently talked about going through and revisiting X Factor, and I left off in the Inferno storyline, and so I finished up those stories, read the last of that storyline, and so you get what was at the time the death of Madeline Pryor, where she completely went crazy and decided to basically will herself to death in this explosion to take out all the X-Men, figuring, if that's what she had to do to beat them, because all she cared about was revenge, then that's what she would do, and it didn't work. And but throughout this, they find out about Mr. Sinister's involvement and just how much he played a part in things. And when you get to the last issue of Inferno, which was X Factor number 39, is when Cyclops actually finds out the whole truth about Mr. Sinister's involvement in his backstory, going all the way back to when he first used his optic blast to save him and his brother as they jumped out of a plane with one parachute, and the parachute didn't open. He instinctively fires his optic blast, and for all these years he thought that he had some sort of brain damage from that, and finds out that it was actually Mr. Sinister who was responsible for this. It wasn't just some coincidental brain damage from an accident, but it was through Mr. Sinister's manipulations that caused these problems. Now, I touched on this a little bit, and it comes up in conversation when you talk about Scott Summers' character, and talking about how he left his wife and child and things like this. And this issue, they kind of blow that off, and it's kind of funny how they do it, because it's very brief, and it's Havoc makes a comment on it, because Havoc really hated what his brother had done, because he had ended up falling in love with Madeline Pryor, and was upset about Scott's treatment of her. And they reconcile, and it's it happens all in one page and just a couple of panels and a line where Havoc is basically like, I blamed you for all this, but it was actually because of Mr. Sinister's manipulations. So there you have it. Scott didn't do anything wrong. It was all Mr. Sinister. So in case you were wondering, if you were one of those people that always blamed Scott for this, because it came up especially when Scott took over the X-Men and created a mutant nation and things like that was going on earlier in the 2010s. There were you got a lot of people questioning Scott, when he hooked up with Emma Frost, and just the way that he acted. A lot of people said it was out of character. A lot of people would argue that no, this was totally in character. And then they would reference things like his relationship with Madeline Pryor and those choices. But, it right here in issue number 39, there we have it. That actually wasn't Scott. That was all Mr. Sinister's manipulations. So
it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. It was, yeah. So it was just funny how quickly that was just blown off. Like, this is such a big part of the story for 39 issues. That was a major part of the story of X Factor. And here in just like a panel or two, in just one line from Havoc, it's all just wiped away. But turns out it was just Mr. Sinister's manipulation. Scott did, I can't blame him. So, and then they embrace, they hug, all is better.
All right. Move over to Kirby.
We got Senryaku collected editions. Yeah. 36 spectacular illustrations by the hottest artist in comics today reveal the passion and power of William Tucci's beautiful and deadly She. Brought together for the first time, these masters of graphic storytelling combine their brilliance to depict the many fascinating and compelling aspects of She as she brings to life the Chinese martial arts classic, The 36 Stratagems. The 36 Stratagems has long been considered a guide not only to surviving conflict, but to proper conduct in all aspects of life well lived. For Anna Ishikawa, the heroine of William Tucci's She, The Way of the Warrior, and the narrator of these stories, the stratagems are a map through treacherous terrain. When she was 4 years old, Anna witnessed the murder of her father and brother by a Yakuza named Archie, and her grandfather has trained her for vengeance ever since. This collection, Senryaku Strategy, is a companion piece to the ongoing She series, illuminating the 36 stratagems while revealing hidden dimensions of Anna's character and personal history. As Anna relates to the historical lessons of wise old grandfather Yoshitora to the events and upheavals of her own life, she begins to develop the wisdom, understanding, and perhaps even the compassion that she will need on her quest. It's a hardcover book. It's got a nice gold inlay on the cover. This is a beautiful book full of, it's like each storyline goes in. It gives you a warrior's lesson at the top, and then it gives a historical description that goes, well, that one didn't have a lesson at the top. Give you one here that it's like the story lesson is right here, the first line, and then just gives you a whole historical story that goes on about all the different wars that we've had throughout history. Each story depicts a different part, how they use their strategies to defeat their enemies, and all that. It's just beautiful artwork, solid full page after full page. It just, I dreaded it and worried about it because I'm not a huge reader when it comes to books. So I like my comic books, and this one has tons of words.
A lot of words. Yeah.
Word bubbles and stuff, and I got a little nervous, and it did take me a long time this week. That's why I call BS on Damon over there, bringing out these books this thick every week. Horrible. And it's like, come on, man, my whole stack isn't even half one of those books. There's no way you're reading that much.
Words too many.
But it's just each one's the double page artwork. So you got the big pages. It keeps bouncing from sideways to upright and around. And then I loved at the end, you get to the end of it, they got the Art of War listed out 3 times with every character, like Joe Quesada, Jim Lee, everyone that helped work on this book. And it gives their own little like war-born description of how they are. It's like Jim Lee, one of the founding fathers of Image Comics, and the man behind such hits as Wildcats. Jim Lee has always been on the front lines, pushing the comics industry into new territory. This warrior, mentally combined with his superb craftsmanship, made him a natural choice to jumpstart Senryaku. It's just tons of great information. I learned so much about history that I never knew before. It's like all those hours wasted in classrooms, and it's like you could have gave me this book and I could have learned everything I needed to know. It's like I'm gonna pass this down to a podcasting friend of mine's daughter. She's into martial arts. She loves Conan and stuff. I know she will love this. I hope she doesn't have it, but it's if you want to get into She at all, this basically starts her whole teachings and each teaching lesson has a whole historical thing with it, and what the lesson teaches you at the top, telling you about it. But it's just wonderful book. Definitely, if you're into history, samurai. Well, she's Chinese American or Japanese American mixed, and it's just yeah. This is a very good book. Big props. So.
On the cover?
Yeah, show them the cover. Gold bit.
All right. Then we will jump over to Dr. Kurtzstedt.
And I've got, and I've had low power warning on my thing, so I have to make this fast.
Okay.
Daredevil, Fearless Origins. I read Daredevil for many years when I was much younger, and for a long time I'd lost touch with Daredevil. This is a trade paperback of the 2019 season 1 Daredevil, and it recreates the origin story of Daredevil, his attempt to rescue a person, the accident that caused his blindness and developed his radar senses. But what's interesting about this story, and what I really appreciated in this run of Daredevil, is that it looks much more at his internal struggles as well. Throughout this story, they have a lot of pieces that are just talking about his what he's thinking, how he's struggling within himself. He struggles with his own violence, his own feelings about, is this violence somehow taking over him? He struggles with his the lessons he's learned within his Catholic background about what justice is, and also about kind of the opposition to violence, and how all of that creates a very conflicted character. And it's interesting to see Daredevil years later from a different perspective. And so if people have read the early Daredevil stuff, to read some of the new stuff is really to see Daredevil in a new light. And so for me, that was really an interesting and powerful piece to read, not having kept up with Daredevil in the recent years, to reimagine what Daredevil might be about. It also includes one Chip Zdarsky story, Daredevil #1 from 2019. So it really is, I think, if you want to reimagine Daredevil, then you have to start in the modern sort of understanding of who Daredevil is. So Daredevil Fearless Origins. And I'm going to have to slip off because I'm starting to lose my connection here. But my answer is Silver Surfer.
Okay.
We will talk to you all later. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, my last title to talk about is Archie's, from the Little Readers line, Little Archie's Lucky Day. Little Archie is in for a big day. Experience the joy, magic, and adventure from the superstar comics team of Art Baltazar and Franco. Titans, from Tiny Titans, Action Cat, and Adventure Bug. So this is a storybook, young readers. If you know Art and Franco's storytelling and their artwork, that's what you're getting, but with the Archie characters. Ultimately, this story is about Archie kind of having some bad luck, and then there's this red cat that's kind of hanging outside of his bedroom window there. A red cat that kind of becomes a lucky charm, if you will. But Archie is dealing with going to school, trying to remember his homework, bunch of other stuff going on there. But one thing I really liked is seeing their version of Jughead, who looks pretty adorable there, and thankfully is eating hamburgers by himself. Jughead's always in his own world like that. But yeah, this is just a real short story book, so I'm not going to dive into it too much because it'll pretty much be over by the time I talk about it. But yeah, it's cute. If you like Art and Franco's art style, I would love to see them do a continuation, like a little Archie digest, in this style. Their style of storytelling works perfectly with Archie characters, regardless of how they draw it. So even if they did the normal, their sensibility and style really fits those characters. So then when you adapt it to their artwork, it's pretty great. So this is from a little reader's line. I bought this directly from Art Balthazar at a convention last year. And so he signed it, and then he did a little Archie drawing right there with his signature. And it's cool, even though not all these characters show up in the book, but you see their version of Sabrina as well with Salem. So yeah, I would definitely love to see them do more Archie work. So yep, this is all ages, little Archies, lucky day. It's great for
certificate of authenticity on that signature, right?
Yes. It must have slipped out somewhere. I'll have to find it.
It's very lucky. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, looking at little Archie like that and seeing the name of the book, his lucky day, I was hoping somewhere in there he would be dressed up like a leprechaun.
Well,
hey, they're always after me, pot of gold.
I didn't cover everything, so maybe if that happens, it doesn't. But if it happens, you have to read it for yourself. But it doesn't.
Kind of looked like a little Richie.
Little Richie Rich or
Happy Days.
Oh,
Happy Days. Richie Cunningham, redhead.
See, we're talking about comics, and I hear Richie, so I'm thinking Richie Rich kind of fits that. Yeah. But yeah, it's good. It's cute. It's adorable. Archie's lucky day. All right, Kirby, I think you have the final two for us.
Oh, all right. All right, we're going to start off with, this was a surprise to me. I'm not huge on DC, but JLA, Shogun of Steel. Through the smoke over the charred battlefields of feudal Japan, a celestial dragon illuminates the sky. Its brilliance reveals it to be a mysterious craft from the heavens, carrying a child of the stars, raised to become a samurai. He joins others, a vengeful warrior woman who stalks the shadows like a bat, an archer whose aim never fails, a man who commands the birds of the air, a ronin who runs like the wind. Together, they form a rebellion against a tyrant who holds their land in his iron grip, forcing a showdown that will determine who is truly the Shogun of Steel. This was a surprise. It was fun, beautiful artwork. I did not expect what I got out of it. Anyone that's read this before, there are names throughout this, like Lord Zunu, Shogun of Steel, Manzo, he fights for the people, Hoshi, Kal-El, Brainiac, Komori, she's the female warrior with the bat, Tekohidi, the Man of Steel. It was a very big surprise to find out that they had a different style of Superman that I did not know at all about or hear about.
Did you say Taika Waititi? Is that what you said?
It's Tekohidi. Tekohidi.
The Man of Steel.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the director of Thor Ragnarok and Korg.
But yeah. What's that? What we do in the shadows. I don't know what that refers to. But yeah, it's apparently he's got the big S dragon on his chest for a symbol, and you can see like the red, it's kind of like a cloak. But I did not expect that. I did not know much about Superman having a brother and all that stuff. So if you want a fun little different story outside the standard realm that I've known in the past, this is definitely a good one to check out.
Oh, cool.
And then the final one for me, for the kids in the room, I did another thing, and this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle presents April O'Neil, the May East Saga. It's
I was wondering how we were going to work the turtles in. I mean, we just had the origin of Daredevil talked about, and of course, the turtles share that origin. So,
and this is also
by the turtles.
an Archie Comics present, so I figured with Anthony that would click in with that. But it goes into a story about April O'Neil. She gets this calling to go to this island, and the first story is called Pages Apart. The Lost Island of Past Lives. And she just hears this thing calling her, so she goes to the island, and turtles follow along with her. And it ends up that it's an ancestor of hers from hundreds of years ago that is waiting for one of her twins, her future selves, to come to the tomb, because that's what apparently awakens her and brings her back to the real realm. But she keeps going back and forth with all that. She learns that she has new powers. She has abilities to turn into a giant robot, mech type chick. She can shrink herself down. Just all these things she's learning out throughout the stories. They battle back and forth. The second story is the battle for Splinter's brain. Splinter gets taken over and mentally taken over by some way. I don't want to give everything away, so hopefully some youngin will read this someday. And then the third storyline is Splinter's wicked headache. After the battle, what comes from that?
The brain thing, yeah.
Makes sense. After the brain thing, leaves him with a headache.
Yeah, you get to meet some new turtle characters in this one also, and one is the bookworm. I can't get the page apart now.
Is one Venus de Milo?
But he's basically a life-sized worm creature, and he's just packed away in a room where Splinter keeps all the books of knowledge that he has, and he keeps track of everything. But yeah, it's a fun little story. Keep you going. Good one in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle realms. You get to learn some new abilities that April has that she doesn't have in any of the other Turtles things that I've seen. So
Definitely goes above and beyond her reporting. So
yeah, fun story for the kiddies.
good. All right, that is going to do it for our weekly reviews. Let's move over to the letters page. Okay, so I have it saved, and when we started the segment and we heard the Ghostbusters thing from last week play, because usually I'll wipe out my old audio and then I record at a blank slate, but when Damon played for us that Ghostbusters clip, which did play pretty good, but I'm like, oh, I can actually just record it here and boost it up a little bit. So I had it on an added track, not knowing I forgot to delete it. So actually, once we got to that part in the new recording, all of a sudden it just started playing again. So yeah, we had a little extra Casey Kasem this week. So all right. Gonna hit record.
And before we start, I don't remember if everybody had joined us already, and I mentioned so I will be putting last week's up. Okay, the week prior to that, we don't have a video version of it. So last week's will be episode 4. There was some
Fire.
It was Zoom. Blame Zoom. Somehow when they saved it, they keep all the meetings in different folders, but if you go into the folder from last week, it's last week's recording. If you go into the folder from the week before, it's last week's recording.
Well, if you work on the recording the week we do it, then you're not 2 weeks.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be saving stuff in 2 different folders. Yeah, somehow it screwed up and it overwrote in one folder that it wasn't even supposed to be saving into. So
All right, I'll listen to the audio then.
But yeah, I gotta check out the audio. So
Billy's been yelling at me, so.
so if you're paying attention to the legacy numbering and everything, episode 4 on YouTube, it'll skip. It's so it should be 128. What is this? 129? Something like that.
129. This one is
the podcast episode. Okay.
What hairdo was that?
This hairdo thing ain't easy to change every week.
I was gonna say, which one was that then?
We got the pigtails because that was last week.
Yeah, that was just big hair down,
Yeah.
so I can redo that.
That's easy enough.
Pigtails.
I did suggest that we could play the audio and we'll just sit down and lip sync to recreate the video. If not everybody's present to recreate the video, somebody will have to play an additional part.
for Damien because a lot of his talking is on mute anyway. So
Me and Anthony got enough action
to
figures.
do it because we
use
just
those
have to show that little picture that pops up for hers.
okay, hit and record. Here we go. Welcome to the letters page. It is the first Saturday in May, and which is also the first Saturday of the month, which means that it's time for another round of Jacob's birthday battles. Jacob, who I did invite to come to this club, but he's got a million birthdays, even during the pandemic. So I think he's breaking the rules or something, or they're just all birthday Zoom sessions. So
Probably.
yep. But he does hope to join us sometime, so that invite has been extended to him. So what Jacob does is take two characters that he doesn't really know much about, and he offers up for the battle. So it could be the battle of the century, or it could just be a one-sided fight. This week's he suggested the Silver Surfer versus Green Lantern. And so that inspired me to dive deep into the Silver Surfer stacks because they had a crossover issue here, Green Lantern and the Silver Surfer. I'll kick it off here. I think their powers abilities, whether through the Power Cosmic with Surfer and the Ring through Green Lantern, it seems like it could be a fairly even battle when it comes to just all this endless fictional cosmic power, basically. But what other people might end up saying too, it's going to come down to Green Lantern. Now, I don't know much about him, but he has to power that damn ring all the time, right?
Well, it's going to depend on which Green Lantern. That will affect the limitations. It will also affect their abilities. So, if you have Alan Scott, it's going to be different than Hal Jordan. If you have Kyle Rayner, that's going to be different than Hal Jordan. Even some that have similar limitations and abilities with the ring itself, you're going to have different outcomes. I mean, if you use Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, any of those era, the way that they use the ring is going to vary. Their creativity and imagination, how much willpower they have. While Kyle Rayner had more creativity, Hal Jordan is, a lot of people believe him to have had the most willpower or the least amount of fear. So they all, there's those aspects. Whereas there's only been one Silver Surfer, as far as I'm aware. So at least that's pretty cut and dried, what his powers and limitations are going to be versus Green Lantern. So in doing this, you're going to run into which Green Lantern, which era is what we're talking about. And I know that happens a lot in these discussions because a lot of times, especially with a DC character, there's different iterations of that character.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the Green Lantern either. I don't know. You were talking like the thing with the whole charge of the ring. How much use can he get out of one charge? If I was him, I would just take the ring, make a bunch of green zombie characters. They'd grab the Silver Surfer, eat him, he'd be done. But Silver Surfer has this cosmic power that's supposed to be so great, but I mean, he couldn't really defend off any brain dead zombies. So I don't know what good he is against someone that actually has powers. But I'd have to know more about each character to really give it out. But I'm going to be the one guy that says, what the heck? Let's give it to Green Lantern.
I would say it would definitely have to depend upon which Green Lantern and what time period in their history, as far as basically it's what's the power. The power of the ring is limited by their willpower and their imagination. So some of the Green Lanterns were definitely more creative, and some of them had more willpower. Whereas Silver Surfer, while he's got a huge amount of power, there is a limit to it.
Yeah, and what this particular issue explores, this is the Kyle Rayner Green Lantern, but Hal Jordan is in this as well, and Thanos and a bunch of other characters. But there is a battle between those two, between Kyle and Silver Surfer. And
wait, who's top billing on the publishing?
Oh,
that's gonna.
Yeah. Well, in the top left, it's the DC logo, so I'm gonna assume they're the top billing, because Marvel's up in the opposite corner. So I assume DC was the one that took charge on that. Yeah, DC Comics. But yeah, so you see a pretty big battle on it, and there's a point where surfers ultimately they're teaming up together against Thanos. Thanos is the villain in this story, but there is a little bit of a battle between them. But ultimately, the whole issue is a team up, and it's not even called the Versus at all. But there is a scene in here with Silver Surfer kind of losing the power, but then there is the mention of the ring kind of losing its power as well. So it's a mostly an even match for the very small portion that they do fight in this. But then there's ways that they actually share their powers, because once again they're going up against Thanos and Terrax and a bunch of other villains. So yeah, the going to this issue is not going to give you a definitive answer because they're not fighting each other, but I will go along the fact of that whole having to find an outlet to charge his ring or whatever happens. So.
Isn't it just that little green light? Can't you just keep carrying around with?
It's the lantern itself. So he charges the ring, says his oath.
But he can carry it. Yeah, he has to say the oath.
Now, usually it will stay invisible. Now, different Green Lanterns have done it differently. Some of them store it somewhere. Sometimes it just kind of comes around with them and it stays invisible and out of sight and whatever, and they just pull it out of their place that they had it and charge it. The most common limitation was a 24-hour period where the ring would have to be charged every 24 hours. So they come into conflict, 10 minutes before the ring needs to be charged. All the surfer's got to do is carry out the battle for 10 minutes, and he could win. Now, there were other weaknesses. Most of the Green Lanterns, the common one was the weakness to it didn't work on anything that was yellow. So silver is not yellow. So if it was the Gold Surfer, then maybe. Otherwise, Alan Scott's, it wasn't the color yellow. It was anything made of wood. So then the question would be, who would win a battle between Alan Scott and Groot? But Silver Surfer would be different again.
Katie or Damon?
Sure, I'm gonna go with Silver Surfer because I feel like he could always bring in Galactus as a ringer, like if he wanted to add some extra punch to that fight, and I feel like they would be a pretty unstoppable combo.
David?
I would definitely go Green Lantern. just to bug you. But more importantly, if you know anything from Terminator 2, it's that people that look like liquid metal are just bad and evil and need to be destroyed. And this is the case with Silver Surfer. You can't even tell if he's smiling or, I mean, he's just blah. You know, Green Lantern, he just needs to get in there, kick some butt, and go home, have a beer, charge his ring, and he'll be good for round 2 tomorrow. That's all there is to it.
So I got kind of a secondary thought. I don't know a ton about Green Lantern, but I do feel like I know a lot about magic rings. And I feel like this magic ring has a lot more limitations than maybe some other ones. So I think Green Lantern should consider like investing in some new jewelry.
I also say if you got backup that comes in, if you're talking about like bringing Galactus for a backup if need be, the Green Lantern, from what I know, you got Green Lantern dogs, Green Lantern aliens, Green Lantern.
There's a Green Lantern's a planet.
Green Lantern everything. So it's like if you're gonna bring Galactus in, he got taken down by a bunch of zombies real simply too.
Yeah. Bring in Nord.
Bring in the whole Green Lantern Corps.
Yeah, the Green Lantern Corps.
In Green Lantern comics, do they ever deal with time travel stuff at all?
I can't think of anything.
Silver Surfers and Galactus just can go poof and disappear. It's a contest to win, not to just disappear and run away.
It's all going to be one-upping each other. You know, Silver Surfer brings in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Green Lantern brings in the Guardians of the Universe. You know, it's always about one-upping each other, you know.
This is what's going to happen. The Green Lantern is going to distract Silver Surfer, and then out of the bushes will come Howard the Duck from behind. He'll fly through the air, quack, quack, stab Silver Surfer in the back. It's over.
And it's hard for me because it's DC Marvel. I should be going just Silver Surfer for Marvel team, but I'm giving it to Green Lantern.
But Chip, the Green Lantern, will show up, and then Squirrel Girl will come up and command Chip, you know, because he's a squirrel. So.
Yep.
I don't know. I heard that there was a Green Lantern dog, and don't cute dogs win everything, at least on the internet?
Yep.
But then
Pets always win it out.
You've got Cosmo, the space dog, so part of the Guardians. So you got two dogs there to kind of hopefully balance things out.
Well, one's a Green Lantern and one's, you know, a talking dog with a Russian accent.
But he looks cute.
Help Anthony with his time travel part of it so they can disappear and run away.
I think it really comes down to the size of the cosmic Johnson, if you will. And
if you want to go there, you better get a hold of Josh Wolf. And
again,
Silver Surfer.
Again, it's not the size; it's how you use it, which again comes down to which Green Lantern are we talking about.
Now, couldn't the Green Lantern use the ring to make whatever he wants for?
Yeah,
we're
starting to slip into under the cowl territory here. So,
and I think Silver
Surfer happens when we go on too long.
Silver Surfer could do the same thing with the board because he's transformed that into things, different objects. So they both kind of. I think it was definitely a good comparison throwing those two.
My big smooth board, baby.
Now, question for everybody here: your own preference. Forget about Green Lantern, forget about Silver Surfer, on who would win in a fight. This does not change your answer. But if you were given a ring or a surfboard, which would you choose? Damon?
Ring. Can't carry a surfboard in a subway. You know, if you're going to be out in public, what are you going to do? You know, if you go to the movies to watch the new Batman movie, you're going to stand it outside by the door? No, the ring you can have anywhere at any time.
Buy an extra seat. Social distancing.
Yeah, because that's not awkward at all. A person walking through a packed movie theater carrying a surfboard.
You could put all your snacks on there and do shots off of, you know, don't they have those ski shots or something like that where everyone's holding the ski and then you have a shot so you can lay the surfboard across your room.
You're missing the bigger point, though. The surfboard is something you actually have to carry. My goal in life is never to carry anything ever. So a ring is perfect.
The surfboard's great for social distancing, so it'd be perfect for right now.
Damon, who doesn't want to carry things, coming from the guy who buys nothing but giant, heavy comic books.
That's yes. I
Why
don't.
he needs a ring so he can build himself some more comic book shelves.
You use the book stand. It holds the book for you. All you got to do is turn the page.
David?
Well, I
Ring or-
was sporting the emerald bling ring.
Kirby?
If it's the Green Lantern ring, yeah, the ring.
No, it's just a ring.
Surfboard doesn't do nothing.
Oh, just a ring.
Yeah, like I said, it has nothing to do with Green Lantern or Silver Surfer. It's simply a ring or a surfboard.
Well, then I'd definitely go a ring just because it's smaller and not annoying all around.
I'd look awkward anyways. Anyone that sees me knows I'm too fat to go surfing. So why am I even carrying a surfboard to begin with?
I mean, surfboards make those sense because they're for people that are supposed to be beach bums that like to hang out at the beach and stuff like that, but they still need a Jeep to haul their surfboard around.
And it's not like there's any place to go surfing in Milwaukee. You know?
Yeah. Although with all the people swimming right now, the lakes and stuff are clearing up. So,
I mean, if we were in Hawaii or California, maybe. But even then, it would look awkward for someone like me to carry a surfboard.
Katie?
Well, I'm a girl, so I like a ring.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I like the shiny things. Although I do feel like a surfboard would be a really unique weapon that, like, I'm just going to not use it at all what it's supposed to be used for. And by day, it's like an ironing board and a carrying tray. Forget the fact that I've never ironed, but I would. And then by night, I'm going to use it as like my super cool weapon of vengeance. I'm going to become the surfed avenger. I don't know. But no, definitely a ring. I want a ring. Even though I have so many more rings, I just need more. I need it. I need the precious.
So if it was the one surfboard, you know.
Yeah, I would. Do it.
Surf
One
down a
board,
volcano.
surf them all. Jim?
I'm good for that. Let's get that remake going. I'm down for that. I've been stuck in my house for 7 weeks.
Jim, you got a ring or a surfboard?
He's gone.
disappeared.
Oh yeah, I think you know what? Let's see if this is Jim that's been holding. I didn't even realize that. How long you been waiting, Jim? Yeah, I didn't see the little icon up there in my corner, so apologize for that.
All right. Yeah.
Now we got to start the whole thing over.
Yep. Start over from the beginning. Get Dr. Kurtzstad back.
Which he said Silver Surfer for winning. Jim, we were just discussing, I don't know when you left, but we were discussing, regardless of powers and characters and who won, if you were given a ring or a surfboard, what would you choose?
Or a ring.
Well,
Absolutely.
I'm snap my fingers here.
That's for when I do.
This podcast is over. I was under the cowl. I'll save what I was going to do. Okay. So I think we exhausted that segment. So what we're going to do now is close up the show. So yeah, we will return next month, hopefully with Jacob, as we do another birthday battle. And that will happen once again the first Saturday of every single month. So this entire time, I've been flushing Doombots down the toilet.
I've been thinking death to Silver Surfer.
I'm the Green Lantern.
I'm showing off the Shogun of the Cowl.
I've been downvoted by Zoom.
Nor and who?
To be continued.